Welcome everyone. Before we get started, I'm just going to talk about a couple of upcoming programs. My name is Jez. If you haven't been to any of our programs recently, I am the Adult and Teen Programming Coordinator. So most programs you're either going to see me or Sue. And we have a couple of programs coming up that I just want to promote real quick. On Tuesday at 7, we have Talking with Young Children About Race. So our head of the Kids Library, Aaliyah, will be talking about how to have difficult conversations with your children, what's age appropriate, how to answer their questions about everything that's happening in the world right now. On Wednesday, we have Go Figure, Navigating the 2020 Presidential Campaign Trail. So that is all about the use of numbers and statistics with the presidential campaigns and how the different campaigns have used those numbers in different ways to promote whatever story they are trying to tell. Even if it's the same number, you might get different stories around it. That one I think is going to be very interesting. It was supposed to be earlier, but it was scheduled the same night as the presidential debates. So we pushed it back, and now we get to cover a little bit more of the campaign trail than we were before. The following Tuesday, the 27th, we have Green Man Theater is going to come in and do their annual Spooky Stories, so some storytelling event right before Halloween. And that Thursday, the 29th at 7:30, is Chef Maddox will be back with Cozy Comfort Cuisine. I think we all need a little bit of that right now. So she always has fantastic recipes. Really looking forward to what she has to say. And tonight we're going to be talking about buying your first home. Now we have 3 speakers. So we're going to walk you through the whole process from start to finish. If you have questions, please put them in the Q&A. You can send in your questions at any time, and then at the very end we will answer them. So you don't need to try to remember them. And if you have any technical issues, anything like that, you can use the chat. And I will go ahead and turn it over to Betsy to get us started.
Great, thank you very much. I am looking to get this into sharing mode. So give me one moment. Are we good? Mm-hmm. It looks like it. All right. I get the question a lot from people, what does it mean when I'm going to buy my first home? What do I have to do? What hoops do I have to jump through? Well, what I want to tell you tonight is that we really have 4 hoops that we have you jump through. Excuse me. Well, number 1, we calculate your monthly income. We pull your credit to determine your obligations. We figure out your debt versus your income, and then we look at your spending and your savings. It's really as simple as that. And listed on the left-hand side of the side here, just so you know, there's a number of different ways to be a first-time home buyer. We have low down payment avenues you can go down. Sellers can help pay closing costs. But there's so many different programs. FHA, VA, conventional USDA rural loans, many programs to that you can choose from. But let's get started. Out of this entire presentation, this is probably the most important page that I want you to look at and be aware of. This is Credit 101, and this is what you need to know as a home buyer. A consumer can look at their credit report and do that through Credit Karma. Or if you have a Chase card, you can look at it through your Chase app. You can look at your credit score and your credit 20 times a day and still not have any issue with that credit score of yours moving around. The reason for that is it's a soft pull. And it's a great way for you to see what your credit is, but it is not an exact science, it's an estimation. So what I want to tell you is there's a difference between a consumer credit report and a mortgage credit report. Credit Karma is that estimation. And then the three bureaus that we pull when we do a mortgage credit report are TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian. And you can get those yourself for free through www.annualcreditreport.com. So let's just go through this list real quick. A hard pull versus a soft pull and fluctuating credit scores. What that means is, as a mortgage credit report, I'm pulling your credit. It's going to ding your credit score just a few points, but then your credit score is going to go back up. That's what a hard pull is. We pull your credit from all three agencies, and we determine what your FICO score is. What if you don't have enough credit? What if you've always lived at home and you've never really made an attempt to develop your credit? What we recommend is getting a secured credit card. And all that is, a secured credit card is when you put money down, say $200, and your credit card limit is $200. So you're securing that credit card and your payments. Another way to do it is to be a co-signer on your parents' credit cards. I helped both my daughters when they were in college develop credit. They went on my Target credit card, and all it was for them to develop their credit rating. They didn't get to use my credit card. They only got it for their credit rating. Another thing that we talk about with credit is we don't want you utilizing more than 30% of your available credit limit. So if your credit limit is $1,000, we'd love to see you around $300, no more than $500 on that credit limit, because that will give you a better FICO score. We don't always want you to pay off your credit because it might lower your credit score. So if you have medical collections, we want to look at your credit score and your credit to determine if they really need to be paid off or not. Rapid rescore technology is a way that we figure that out. Next, you might be a candidate where you might need to freeze your credit. And if you need to do that, there is no cost again. And what I've listed here is the Equifax, the Experian, and the TransUnion phone numbers in order for you to be able to freeze your credit. But let's get back to being a first-time homebuyer. I've included here an example credit report to let you know what we look at and that what is important to a lender when you are applying for a home loan. I've put here alert on the left-hand side because we have a statement here that says that the Social Security numbers don't match the file. That's not something we want to see. If that's on your credit report, we want to help you correct that. The next one, a consumer statement. That means this consumer put a statement on their credit report. Possibly there's a concern with stolen credit. So that's an alert as well to us. Again, the next alert, I'm looking at the credit score and it's 590. That's going to be a concern, and we'll get into that in a moment. We also have an alert for the next one because that has past due amounts. We go down a couple more, we see a bankruptcy. So a lot of this information on the credit report is alerting us to things that we need to see that might not be positive but negative. Lastly, I'm going to go quickly on to the next page. There is a consumer statement and there's a fraud alert, and it does turn out that in this case the consumer wanted people who did look at their credit to know that there was fraud that had happened. And if you need to put a consumer statement on your credit report, we can help you do that. That's just a little bit of information on credit reports. Now I would like to go to what your FICO score can do to your interest rate, and this is of major importance. Basically, from a financial perspective, everything you do is based on risk. So if you look at this grid here, if you have a FICO score between 720 and 740, your mortgage rate could actually increase an eighth. Next, 700 to 720 FICO score, your interest rate could go up a quarter. If you keep on going down and going down, if you have a 640 to a 660 FICO score, your mortgage rate could increase 3/4 of a point. So what this page is telling you is that the lower your FICO score, the higher your interest rate on your loan, and it's all risk-based. On to the next page. This is another example of risk-based interest rates, and this is on cars. Not first-time home buying, but it's a good example for you. If you've got one of those stellar FICO scores, you have a 781 to an 850, your price on a new car is going to be 3.68, or a used car, 4.34. Go all the way down now to the deep subprime FICO scores. 300 to 500, your interest rate just skyrocketed to 14%. Or on a used car, it just went up to 19%. So people ask me all the time, how can I save for a new home? How can I save my money? Well, the way that you save your money is by having a higher FICO score, because you are charged less for your credit, whether it's a car, whether it's a mortgage, whether it's homeowner's insurance. It's all risk-based. FICO scores are very important, not just with mortgage lending. Next, we come to your debt in relation to your income. When we pre-qualify you for a mortgage, and then we send you on to Denise, who's going to speak to you in a few minutes, she wants to make sure that you can be pre-qualified for homes. She also wants to know how much home you can afford. So what I do as a lender is I figure out what you can afford. So here's a couple examples of what we are looking at. DTI is debt to income. So when is your debt to income too high for your mortgage? Well, let's say your monthly gross is $3,000. And by the way, we always figure out your debt to income with gross income, not net, not after we take out taxes, take out your 401k, take out your health insurance. We don't know what those factors are. So we always take your gross income. Monthly credit card debt here, $400 a month. A car loan, $500 a month. Student loans, $650. We have total monthly payments of $1,550. What we do is we divide that into your gross income. And in this case, your debts are 51% of your gross income. Actually, it's even higher because we're not taking it off your net, we're taking it off your gross. So when are we looking at a good DTI, a good debt to income? Well, I have another example here. Your monthly gross income is $3,000, but your credit card debt is lower. It's $200, your car loan is $400, and your student loans are $350. So I'm going to take your monthly payments of $950, divide it into your income, and lo and behold, we're at 31%. That's what we like to see, that your DTI is roughly 32%. And then we're going to also figure out what your mortgage payment is as well. So this is just an example of what we look at. There are many different guidelines for how much house you can afford. And what we kind of decide is what type of program are you being pre-qualified for. That will help us figure out how much income we need to qualify you. One of the programs we have with Inland, and this is available through the state of Illinois, is the Illinois Housing Development Authority has a program. They're known as IHDA. So say you want to buy a home, you have great FICO scores, you got great job time, you have a low debt to income, everything looks stellar. You just have a hard time saving money for a down payment. What this program is with IHDA, this offers you the option to get down payment assistance. So we have probably about 7 or 8 programs that offer down payment assistance. It depends on your FICO score and it depends on your income. But in this case, if you want to look at the second paragraph, depending on your personal financial situation, you may be able to receive a grant or a second mortgage through this program. The assistance can be anywhere from $6,000 to $10,000 depending on the program, and sometimes it's forgivable. Forgivable means you can be given this money at closing and you never have to pay it back if you live there for a certain period of time. We have another program called with Home DuPage, And of course, we're in DuPage County. And the Home DuPage program will allow you to have $15,000 in down payment assistance if your income and your FICO score are where they should be. That's an incredible program. And after 5 years, that entire amount is forgiven. So we have programs here when you might need a little bit of a help with the down payment on your first home, because we realize first-time home buyers might have a problem here and there with saving for that down payment. There's another program we have, and this is really an incredible program as well. This is a program in which, if you can look at the bullet points, we do almost up to 100% financing with a first and a second mortgage. The second can be repayable or forgivable depending on the circumstances. We have flexible debt to income ratios. There's no income limit options, which means you don't have to have a certain income to qualify for the program. And look at this, the credit score needs to be 620 or higher. Normally, and a lot of people know this, we want to see your FICO score be 640, but even higher than that, we want it to be in the 700s if at all possible, because we know you'll get a lower interest rate with that higher FICO score. But in this case, it will go down to a 620 FICO score. It's for first-time buyers and repeat buyers. Seller credits and gifts are allowed. You might ask what a seller credit or a gift is. A gift is when, of course, your family member gives you a gift for down payment. And a credit is maybe something that Denise can touch on. That's when the seller will give you a little bit to purchase the home. This program is with single family, condo, townhome, and 2-unit properties, conventional and FHA. And then we do look for you to have homebuyer education. And homebuyer education is done through a homeownership center. It is a great, great program to take, and it really shows you what you need to know to own a home. I would recommend it to anyone. Lastly, non-occupant co-borrowers are allowed. So if mom or dad need to co-sign, they are allowed to do that. Examples of down payment assistance, if this is something that you need, it's an example right here. If we're applying 2 different programs that we have, IHDA and it's called an FHLB grant, the sales price on your home, $200,000. We have a second mortgage from IHDA for $10,000. We actually have a third mortgage from the Federal Home Loan Bank for $6,000. But guess what? The $10,000 and $6,000 don't have to be paid back. So all of a sudden, lo and behold, your loan amount is $184,000. That's what a grant does. It lowers your payment. It lowers your loan amount. But say you are only going to be doing the IHDA grant, then we deduct just the IHDA grant from the sales price, and you have a sales loan amount of $190,000. Well, why would we only apply an IHDA grant as opposed to both the grants? Well, if you look on the right-hand side, income limits for IHDA grants in Cook, DuPage, Kane, Lake, McHenry, and Will, your income is $106,000. But if you go above that, the income limits for the other program is $51,000. So if your head is spinning right now, I'm not surprised because I'm throwing so much information at you right now. But the point of all this is that there are so many options out there nowadays regarding down payment and being a first-time home buyer and choosing the program that you want. It's really a great time to be a home buyer. Lastly, saving and budgeting. I like to tell a story when I was in my 20s, and it was a situation in which I left my first employer, and they said, "What do you want to do with your 401k?" I'm like, 401k? I really didn't even know what it was, what it did, that you weren't supposed to just cash it out. I didn't know you were supposed to roll it over. I mean, I know this now, but I didn't know this in my 20s. I cashed in the 401k and I had a really great trip to Hawaii. Well, lo and behold, that amount of about $6,000 If I would have rolled it over into a 401k plan again, that amount would have been over $100,000 now. So the point I'm trying to make is savings, savings, savings. You can do it, and we can help you do it. Did you know, does your employer have a savings program? Lots of times a 401k or a 403b if you're a teacher. If you're not doing the program, I would suggest even doing $10 every paycheck if you can afford it, because this is the way you save, and it just grows and grows and grows. The dividend reinvestment, it grows. And then another option is, have you tried distributing your paycheck between checking and savings? I know it sounds very simple, but try doing that, putting a certain amount in checking, the rest in savings. Don't touch the money in savings. That's going for your down payment. And another mortgage down savings withdrawal. Take the money out, put it in another account. Reduce the high interest rate on your other debts. Do you know that you can refinance your car? Do you know you can refinance your student loans? There's a program online called SOFI. It's SOFI. This will allow you to go online to see if you can refinance your student loan debt. Or skip a vacation. Well, that's kind of easy to do with COVID right now. So put that money you were going to use for a vacation and use it for your down payment. Or if you need to, get a second job. We highly recommend not taking it out of your retirement plan. Just don't do it like I did. But if you have to take it out of your retirement plan, just take a small amount out to do so. But those are some of the ideas for savings. So what we've talked about are what we look for. We look for your savings. We look for your debt to income. We look at your income. We look at your credit. We put it all together. And then once we're able to give you a pre-approval, we get that done. We get that out to Denise, the realtor, and she runs with it. And then eventually Greg will be able to do that inspection for you. But I am just about done with my presentation, and I think I actually came in a little bit under time. But what I'd like to do is hand it over to Denise, and I will get my presentation off of this. And thank you for your time. I really enjoyed talking to you. I hope that we can answer questions for you at the end of the presentation.
Thank you, Betsy. That was all very, very informative. Thank you.
You're welcome. Oh,
So,
I thought
am I on? Okay, wonderful. So my name is Denise Taslar, and I am a realtor. In order to have a designation as saying that, that being a realtor is being a part, not only licensed, but being a part of the National Association of Realtors. And I am very happy to present to you what you would be expecting when you are buying. Betsy went over so much information about the lending process, and I always like to use that by saying that it's like your ticket, it's like your passport to leave the country. Not a lot of that going on right now, but that pre-qualification letter that you receive is going to tell so much about the amount of money that the sales price of a home at the highest it could be. It's going to help your realtor know what type of taxes we need to be making sure that we're not looking at houses for over that amount. So let's say that your lender says that taxes can't be more than $7,000, but that you're pre-approved up to a $300,000 home, and we start looking at property that is taxes higher, but at 300, that's not going to work. So that's why it's so important to get that pre-approval letter ahead of time before you ever actually go out looking at properties. Betsy also explained some things about like FHA and conventional, and how that works with a realtor and with you is that we need to know, making sure that a property has the characteristics, the things that are going to work with, let's say FHA. Greg is going to talk a little bit to you about that when he gives his presentation as well, because properties that are going to be able to be approved by FHA might mean that we need to find a property that doesn't have any chipped paint. We need to find a property that makes sure that it's not a foreclosure with the toilets that aren't working, things like that. So again, that pre-approval letter, pre-qualification letter is so important because it's going to tell us so many different things about what type of homes we are going to look for. Jez, are you able to move that screen up? Okay, great. Thank you. So this is really, we won't go through all of this because this is very much like what you were just hearing about, like the different things, but about a loan and what you would need. But this is the type of stuff that you'll need to get prepared so that you'll be able to show it all to your lender. So some of the things are like copies of your two most recent pay stubs, a 1099 if you're self-employed, different parameters. And Jez is going to send this to you if you'd like to have it as well, and it will give it to you. And I bet Betsy has a really detailed list as well that she can share with you. Okay, you want to go on to the next part, Jez? Keep going all the way up. Thank you. All right, so we talked about the advantages of being pre-approved so that your house hunting can be more efficient and you'll know how much you can spend. You'll gain negotiating muscle because sellers know you're a serious buyer. Right now, the market inventory is very low. There's not a lot of properties on the market for how many buyers. We actually look at something we call how many months of inventory is out there. So one of the things when you are getting ready to purchase a home, before you even go out looking as well, it's best to be able to sit down with a realtor and go over the process, talk about the market, learn about what a contract, what's everything is in an offer, in a contract, what kind of papers are you going to sign, how are you going to communicate with your realtor with when new properties come on. There's many things that are going to be needed to be put in place. So having a meeting prior, whether it's a Zoom meeting like this, right? We call it like a pre-buyer's presentation where we'll customize just for you the process of what's going to happen. So right now this is kind of a textbook process, but it's best to customize it when you're ready to do that. Having that pre-approval is so much more valuable than going out into the housing market without one. Because there is a shortage of inventory, we're finding multiple offers right now, which means that there's more than one buyer trying to buy that home. So if you didn't have that pre-approval letter right away, you would not be able to even get that home before it's sold to somebody else who was ready, who had that passport to leave the country, as I always like to say. So how are we going to shop for home? Some of the things that you'll want to consider is your proximity to work, your distance to shopping restaurants, medical care availability, traffic flow, especially during high volume hours, right? Neighborhood, schools, your distance to schools, parks, and libraries. Can you move it a little bit higher? Thanks, Jez. Our homes in the area holding their value. So one of the other things that we are going to be able to do for you is provide you some reports of, has the market gone up? Has it gone down? What is the average list to sell ratio? So let's say that in that community that you're thinking of purchasing in, we can take a look and see if the average home in that area, let's say, is $325,000. And the majority of the sellers get 3% less than their asking price. It is also helpful to know that so that we can look at homes that have sold, be able to do what we call it a market analysis, and be able to help you to know where to come in with an offer. So rest assured that is all stuff that a realtor will help you with, because again, the process can be overwhelming. There's a lot. You're excited buying your first new home, and there's so much involved that's what a realtor can bring to you. Hold your hand from beginning to end, and not only go out looking at properties, but help you with making sure that we're looking at the right properties, things that are best for you, and making sure that the homes are holding their values in the area. Lifestyle considerations, your lifestyle specifications can help you remain focused on finding that right home. You may need office space or room to entertain your new home, like now, right? Office space, very important. Are you looking for a home to grow in? Are you looking to downsize? Probably not something first-time home buyers are looking to grow, but looking down the road, that's what we need to do, looking down the road. So maybe perhaps you're thinking about taking a job relocation in 3 years. That may affect, you know, where you purchase. Some of the other things too is like single family, condos, townhomes. Townhomes and condos, really condos have like association fees, and that's kind of also bringing back to Betsy into this is we need to also discuss, if you're thinking of buying condos, Betsy's her role is helping know where the parameters are. So let's say that the association fees are $350 a month, but you know, your pre-approval letter where she's kind of put you is no more than $250. Well, that's going to tell us a lot. Stay flexible, prioritize what you'd love in your home, and accept that you may not find every feature, but perhaps you could add them later. There's no such thing as a perfect home. So there's always the want, need, and then what we can really do. When you found the house that you want, is you and your agent decide how much you'd like to offer on a home. You'll have to weigh some very important factors, and here's some of them. The home's asking price, the recent home sales in the area. Your agent can provide the sales data like I was telling you. The market conditions, has the home sat on the market for a while? We're able to see how long that property has been listed. And how badly do you want the house? Like I said, right now we're seeing a lot of multiple offers. We are seeing buyers making offers that are at full price. That doesn't mean you have to do that. It just means that right now, maybe perhaps when you enter the marketplace, it may be different. It may be a buyer's market. Right now, it's a seller's market because inventory is low. Also, the condition and location of the home, and like I just said, are there other offers on the house? Preparing an offer to purchase. So your real estate professional will prepare the documents that will make your offer official and will present to the seller. We can do verbal offers because any offer is an offer and we must present it. But most likely a seller will come back and say that they need to see it in writing. So most all offers are made in writing, and we use a contract. And one of those things that when I talked about sitting down and customizing with a realtor that's just for you, the process of how you're going to do things, that's a really good time to go over a complete contract. I'll mention some of the items, the important ones, but it's lengthy and we're not going to go through the whole contract tonight. But that purchase agreement called the sales contract, it's a binding document that indicates the amount that you want to offer and the terms. So we were talking about financing. Betsy mentioned like FHA, conventional. It's going to be in there how much you're going to put down. So if you're putting down 20% of the offer price, then we're going to indicate whatever that amount is. We're going to have some inclusions. The contingencies, you wouldn't have, being a first-time homeowner, a home to sell, but some of the contingencies that are in there have to do with attorney review and a home inspection, being able to have one within 5 days of an agreement. So Greg will talk more about the home inspection. And then there's this part called earnest money. So earnest money is an amount of money showing that you're committed to buying the home. Typically, the deposit is a small percentage. There's no set amount. So I can't say to you that you need to make sure that you're saving X amount. I can give you a little general idea, but it's really what you offer and it's what a seller is willing to accept. So let's say that it's a $300,000 home. I generally see anywhere from 3 to 5. But again, I'm just giving you a general number. If you offered $2,000 and the seller said yes, then that would be acceptable, whatever you both agreed to. That amount of money, everything is going to be done to protect your earnest money. So I mentioned like the attorney review, that's the 5 days after it's signed for your attorney to review it, and that 5 days for that home inspection. So because that's written into the contract, if let's say that there's something in that home inspection that didn't want you to continue moving forward, that contract is an agreement with the seller that at that point, once the contract was dissolved, that earnest money would be returned back to you. I never want to tell any buyer, or even when I'm talking to a seller, that it's a definite which direction that earnest money is going, because neither I nor anybody else can make that decision except for the seller and the buyer together. That's why it's important to take it serious with the amount of money that you're saying that you will be putting into actually the company, how that earnest money is held. It's held usually by the company that the seller is working with to market and sell the home. So again, everything is written in the contract to protect your earnest money, but it's important that you do understand what that all means. As far as like once you make that offer, then there'll be like a counter offer situation. Everybody likes to negotiate differently. It's always ultimately your decision how you're going to come back, whether you're going to, if the seller says you've offered them $290 and they're selling their home for $300 and they want to come back with a counter offer, and then you could either agree to it. They might agree to your offer in the very beginning. They could decline your offer. They could make that counter offer, and then you get to decide what you want to do back. And that's where you're going to lean on your realtor as well to take a look at those statistics that I mentioned, looking at the list to sell, the other homes that are comparable. What did they sell for? How long did it take that property to sell? So that you can gather that information and decide with that information to make an educated decision as to where you want to go with your decision. Sellers can counteroffer with their desired amount. It's typically within 24 to 48 hours. That word typically definitely is a gray word used because the contract issue reads that time is of the essence. It doesn't actually give a number, but it's relatively, a seller wants to sell, you want to buy. So generally that process is done in, fairly quickly. At this point, you're going to either agree with their terms or make another counter offer. The process continues until you come to an agreement. And when you come to an agreement, that's an exciting time because then everybody verbally accepts it, and then the actual contract gets signed by the buyer and the seller. Thanks, Jess. Writing an offer to purchase. So this is what's included in a contract. We're going to make sure that we clearly indicate which fixtures and personal property are being conveyed with the property. There is a home warranty that a buyer could request for a seller to pay for. It's generally about $500, and the seller pays for it. It's paid at closing, and the buyer then has usually a 1 year, some of them are 13 months, but it's generally a 1 year home warranty that you would have. If a seller were to say that they're not going to offer you a home warranty, you as a buyer can purchase a home warranty on your own. You just need to do it before you close. We talked about how you're going to have on there the amount that you're offering. We talked about earnest money. We need to come up with a date for closing. So this is something, again, we are going to work with your realtor, and you're going to work with your lender, because it's important that, let's say Betsy was your lender, she needs to know, like, what is a date that you're going to be closing. Generally, it's 45 to 60 days. And I'm sure when we get to questions and answers, Betsy can let you know that right now there's a lot of loans and there's a lot of refinancing. And so the typical 45-day close sometimes is taking longer. So that's an important thing for your realtor to work. I call it your team, right? So you've got your realtor, you've got your lender, you've got your home inspector, and we haven't even talked about an attorney yet, but you have your attorney, so you have your team. So that's why it's important for your realtor to talk to the lender and everybody, and we'll get that date that is within parameters and a date that might be best for you as well. disclosure. So there's a couple of disclosures that the seller will provide to you. The seller is going to provide to you what's called an Illinois seller's disclosure. It has lots of questions on it that they need to answer. Like, first of all, the first one says, have they occupied the home in the last year? That's an important one. Greg can talk a little bit more about that to you. There's a difference, things that he looks for when it's a property that nobody's lived in for a year or longer versus a home that's been occupied. So other questions on there mention, like, if they have any knowledge about the roof being not in good shape. Questions like, have they ever had, like flooding, various questions. And so when you get that, you'll look at it and read it. And if we have questions, we can go back to the seller and ask, but you'll be signing it, agreeing that that is what the seller disclosed to you. Another disclosure is a lead-based disclosure. So if the home is built before 1978, the seller will fill out a lead-based paint disclosure, letting you know if they're aware of any lead-based paint. If it's built before 78, there has to be lead-based paint somewhere beneath the layers of paint. I'll leave that to Greg to explain kind of more about that, but the seller discloses that too. There's a radon disclosure where a seller is going to let you know if there's a radon mitigation system already in the home, or if they're aware of high radon levels and they haven't done anything to change that. And that's another good thing for my lead-in is a lot to Greg's stuff. So, so Greg can talk to you more about radon. Also, you'll need a real estate attorney, and also you'll want to hire a professional inspector. It's extremely important. That's how you learn everything about that home. We'll have a mortgage contingency written into that contract, and that's something that Betsy will also be working on. That mortgage contingency is a date that's before the closing date set, saying that you'll get a clear to close. Clear to close day is always a good day. And you won't have a house sale, because if first-time home buyers, you wouldn't have something or a close. This time it's easier buying a home than when you already own a home, because you have nothing to sell and you're actually a strong buyer to a seller. So things change when you sit down with your realtor the next time around. It's going to be a lot of different things than what I'm talking about. Well, very similar, but different as far as like you need to sell a house first. Credit at closing. Betsy mentioned something about this as well. So there is something called a seller credit. Again, you'll work with the lender, your realtor, you'll come up with the plan. When you're out looking at that home, it may be that when you go to make that offer, we talk a little bit about, do you either have to have a seller give you a credit, which you can use for the what you're going to pay to have that loan, like the charges of the loan, or if that's something that you don't need but you still want to ask for. That's all stuff that we set up and we know kind of ahead of time what it is that we're going to do when you make that offer. I'll have Greg tell you more about termite inspections. As is, some sellers convey a property in its as-is condition. I see that a lot with maybe there's family members that have inherited a home and they just don't want to put out money to do anything to bring a house either up to code or even just slap some new paint on it. So they sell it in its as-is condition, and you still, nobody can take that right away unless you give the right up to have a home inspection, which I nor I'm sure Greg or anybody here would say would be a good plan. But you can purchase in as-is condition and still do a home inspection. Dual agency. So what dual agency means is that when you're working with your realtor, they're representing you, and we need to disclose with you the relationship. So if you and that realtor are working together, and that agent happens to have a seller that has a home on the market and they're representing the seller, that realtor needs to disclose to both of you that they she has a relationship or he has a relationship with that seller, and you have to be okay with that. And if you're not okay with it, that's okay. It'll still all be fine. Well, realtors figure it out all the time when somebody isn't okay with dual agency. So one of the things that a dual agent can do is they can, obviously, you want to treat everybody fairly and answer questions honestly, but there's certain things that you can't do, like first-time home buyers, you're really going to rely on your realtor to have advice. And so one of the things that a realtor cannot do is help you with where to maybe make an offer. So if the house is listed at 300,000, and even though the realtor is going to give you those documents, the information to show you what a home is possibly worth, things like that, a realtor's not able to say to you, maybe coming in at, say, 290 would be a good idea. That's not something that the realtor then can do, nor can do it for the seller. So you'll have to make that decision. I'm happy to explain that more if you have for questions when we get there. As far as items needed at the time the offer is written, the funds available for the earnest money. So that earnest money we talked about, that's showing good faith that you want to purchase, you do need to have that money set aside in an account. If it's a check, a personal check, it needs to have your name on it, not if your name's not on it, you can't use it. There's a couple of things that that are important with the earnest money. You also need to be able to show that the earnest money came out of your account. And that's extremely important. And then a copy of that is going to go to your lender as well. We talked about that pre-approval letter, the signed sales contract once it's signed by both buyer and seller. You can keep going up, Jess. Thanks. So this is really good about after the contract has been accepted. So I haven't been watching time. So Jazz, if I'm going to, just send me a note. But once you have an accepted agreement with the seller, which is really exciting, this is when a lot happens, and it happens quickly. So we're going to deliver a copy of that contract to your attorney. Your attorney is going to have 5 days from that acceptance date, Monday through Friday. Weekends we're not looking at. So during those 5 days, your attorney can look through it. If there's anything that they want to go back to the other attorney, to the seller's attorney, and ask to have modified, it begins negotiations all over again. That's when you're going to schedule the home inspection. That's when you're going to do the radon, the termite inspection. Any of your inspections you're going to get done in those 5 days. And then you're going to, once you know that you're ready to move forward, you do that home inspection. There could be a credit you ask the seller for. Let's say there's something that is needing repair, and you would like to see that repaired before you move in. You can ask the seller to have that fixed by somebody licensed. Or you could ask for a credit. So that means that they'll credit you, say $200, whatever it is. Another reason we work with Betsy, because there's only sometimes so much money that we can kind of have for credit. So we're going to lean on your lender to make sure that we're going down that right path. Once you do that home inspection and you move on through that and you agree with everything with the seller, and we get through the attorney review, then the next part is you're going to turn in that earnest money. It's going to go to the listing broker's office, and we start working on, not me, but like Betsy starts working on your loan. Let's see, second week, we're going to follow up with that lender. The lender's going to ask you for lots of paperwork. It's important that we get back to everybody in a timely manner, because again, we set a parameter of when you can close by, and we need to make that deadline. So that's why, again, you want to pick your team that's going to work really well for you in a timely manner, not too fast that you feel like you're not able to make decisions. But in order to stay on track, you need to make sure that your team is working in a reasonable amount of time. We're going to be following up with your attorney if there are things that we're going to get repaired. That's something that your realtor is going to help make sure that that's being taken care of. There's a lot of communication back and forth. Go on to page 6. And then Greg's going to go over more with the inspections, so we can go to homeowners insurance. You will also at that time purchase a 1 year's home insurance policy. Your realtor is going to keep you with all these dates and all of the guidelines of what needs to be done next. So you don't have to learn all this tonight. That's the idea behind the realtor. So make sure that they're holding your hand, getting you through that whole process. The closing. So right before the closing, you're going to do a final walkthrough. You're going to go through the property, make sure that if there's something the seller promised to fix, that you can visually see it fixed. If there's anything that isn't the way you thought, the contract reads the property has to be broom clean, which if we were to get there at that walkthrough and there was some garbage, there were things that, a hole in the wall, that's when we're going to go to the closing, and we're going to let your attorney know that this stuff, has happened. We'll take pictures, and then the two attorneys will work that out. Let's hope nothing like that happens, but there are incidences where that may happen. So that's the final walkthrough. Closings are being done a little differently right now with COVID, but it's all being worked out, and there's lots of buyers that are buying homes and being able to successfully get this accomplished. I don't know, do you want to move up a little bit more, Jez? And then that's just like, if you were to, hopefully you'll take a copy of this booklet. You can fill that all in when you're actually under contract. So it's lots of good information to fill in. So the closing costs, this is in the booklet. Again, Betsy is the expert in this, so I'm sure she has some sample closing costs for you as well. Keep going. Yep, it's just more mortgage terms. You can turn this all off now, Jess. Thank you. So I'm asked a lot, what is the fee to work with a realtor? And the answer is most always. There are exceptions, but most always a seller will pay the commission to a broker, to a realtor, to the company that the realtor is sponsored by. They will pay the commission for them to bring them, the seller, a willing, ready, able buyer. So it's not going to cost you, and the benefits are amazing, because you can find so much information right now on what homes are selling for and what the neighbor sold and that's all on the internet. But the process, having somebody hold your hand, that's something that you really do need a realtor for. So I will hand it over to Greg.
Thank you, Denise. That was very informative.
Thanks.
Hi, everybody. My name is Greg Lehman. I am the owner, operator of Classic Home Inspection Service in the western suburbs. So at this point in the buying process, you've secured your financing, you've looked at houses with your realtor, you've chosen a new home, and you've placed an offer on that house. Now it's time to get that inspected so we can make sure that the home that you put the offer on is actually what you're expecting to be purchasing. So, Jess, you can flip to the next one. So the inspection, as Denise had mentioned, usually needs to be done within 5 days. Right now, a typical real estate contract will specify it needs to be completed within the 5 days. In this busy market right now, that isn't always possible. So sometimes your schedule won't allow it, your realtor's schedule won't allow it, or most importantly, your home inspector is completely booked out past 5 days and is not able to get to it within that point. So that's when you need to have a conversation with your real estate agent and your attorney to see if you can get an extension on that time. Right now, it has not been an issue at all to do that. People understand that the market is busy and we need to add on a few extra days to that. So you've hired the home inspector, you arrive on the date of the inspection to the house, and I like to say that every house has a story. My job as your home inspector is to read the story and relate that to you in a way that you understand it. We are there to report the condition of the house, specifically the major components. We're not there to do a cosmetic inspection or anything like that. We're looking at like your bigger ticket items. There is a standard of practice that we follow in the state of Illinois that it's specifically, it's a visual inspection. It's not technically exhaustive, and we're not taking components apart on the house. We don't own the house, so we're not allowed to come in and take everything apart. But we are able to go inside and do normal testing, operating things with normal user controls, and going inside of any of the inspection panels, like inside of an electrical box, doing a little bit more invasive testing. We're just not allowed to cut holes in the walls to see what's inside, things like that. So it's of the major components. Jess, you can flip to the next one. The standards of practice very specifically says that we are making a condition report and we are stating for every item that we look at the condition. The classifications or grading that they have us use is satisfactory, marginal, and poor. So satisfactory, that means whatever item that I'm looking at, that it works, it's installed properly, and it's within its normal expected lifespan. Sometimes on older homes, we'll look at things that have been maintained well and they're working on the day of the inspection, but because of the normal lifespan of equipment, it may be at or near or even beyond what we normally would expect it to last. So we just indicate to you that the item is working, but there's no specific time that it'll last till. It may be in its last days. And then the poor category, those are things that are not working, they're broken, they're not installed properly, and possibly in an unsafe condition. Those are any of the items that are going to require immediate attention. So speaking of the items that need immediate attention, a lot of times people will ask the question, is everything up to code? So just so you understand how that works, a lot of times you're working to purchase a home that's a little bit older. Building codes are the rules that need to be followed when something is installed or when the upgrade is made. And it's never up to any current homeowner to keep up with every single upgrade to codes on a house. So a lot of times the answer is no, it's not up to code. However, a lot of codes are grandfather claused in. So if the code for what they were installing something was, say, like in 2009, and now we're in 2020, the code could be different, but they installed it quite a bit earlier than that. They installed it what the code was then, so everything is fine. The only difference on that is sometimes the state will take building codes and they make them into laws. Once it's a law, everybody has to follow the rules on that. It doesn't matter when it was installed, anything like that. It's a current law that needs to be followed. And then for your information on that is anytime that you're doing future repairs on anything that's in the house, it needs to be brought up to code at that point. So if you are looking to, I'll use this as an example, it comes up a lot. You're looking at a house that has an older electrical system in it, and maybe you're going to move in and put in a jacuzzi out on the back patio. Your electrician will come in to run the new line to that, and because he's adapting or upgrading the panel to compensate for that, now everything in that panel has to be brought up to code. So they may tell you it costs X amount of dollars to put the line in for the jacuzzi, but he also needs to upgrade the bedroom circuits, your breakers that go to that, to the newer style. And you'd say, well, I'm not looking to do anything with the bedrooms, I'm just putting in the jacuzzi. But he is required to bring that up to the current code. So that will come into play whenever you are doing future repairs. Also, homes that are sold as is, Denise kind of touched on this a little bit. Homes that are typically sold as is are the ones that the seller has indicated they're not doing anything to the home. And, or maybe you've negotiated such a great price on it, they're like, fine, if you want to buy it at this price, we're not going to do anything to that house. So those are ones that it will be up to you to bring all those things up to the current codes and laws anytime that you're doing anything to the house. A lot of times people will be told that they don't need to do an inspection, and it's never anybody's right except yours to have the inspection done. There's times when people will be buying new construction or remodeled homes or those as-is homes that we were talking about, and somebody will mention to them, well, it's new construction, everything will be right. Or the house was just recently remodeled, everything is new, you don't need an inspection on that. Or it's as is, the seller's not going to do anything anyway, so why would you have an inspection done? These are probably the three most important ones to get inspected. And kind of going through this, for new construction, I always kind of relate back to a story for a home that I inspected in Lockport. Now, homes are built usually by a very ethical builder. There's building inspectors that need to periodically come out, inspect the work, make sure it's installed properly, all of those things. But they don't operate mechanicals in the house. They make sure it's installed properly. So an example that we had was this house in Lockport. It was built in the summer. The furnace had never been used. We did the inspection on it, and as I'm going through, I'm doing an internal carbon monoxide test on it and find that after it's been running for about 2 or 3 minutes, it starts putting out deadly levels of carbon monoxide. Now, nobody's ever lived in the house. Nobody's ever slept in a bedroom overnight, and the house has never been heated. We found out it was a manufactured defect, and if somebody would have moved into that house without having an inspection done, it's very possible that we would have had a big problem with those levels of carbon monoxide. Remodeled homes are ones that usually either the homeowner has fixed things up to get it marketable, or we've had a rehabber buy the house and maybe they've gutted the house, maybe they've just upgraded a few things to make it saleable, but it doesn't mean that everything was looked at by a building inspector. It doesn't mean that they were qualified to do any of the work themselves. Sometimes it's just putting what I say lipstick on a pig, and it's covering up defects that are in the house. So an example that I have of that is a house that I did in Oak Lawn, that it was a single mom that was purchasing the house, and her biggest fear was if the house had mold. She had a son that had serious respiratory issues, and she was very concerned about mold issues. So we're walking through the house, and it's a typical Cape Cod house. Everyone, the attic access is in the exact same place. Done thousands of these homes. We're walking through, and there's no attic access to look up in the attic. So I look into a little bit further. The rehabber, the remodeler, had drywalled over the attic access. So I remembered that if I stood on the roof of the garage, there was a gable vent. So I used my flexible camera to look inside of there. There was a significant amount of what turned out to be black mold in the attic, and the remodeler found it and just covered it with drywall, hoping that nobody would ever see it. So that was kind of a big issue on that house. And then as is homes, basically the seller has said, and it may be a bank-owned property or a foreclosure. There's a lot of different categories for why something is being sold as is. That just means that the seller is not willing to make any of the corrections. This is important to have those inspected because you need to know how many of these corrections or upgrades or repairs you're actually going to need to be doing once you purchase this house. So that's where an inspector is very important to go through, that they will be listing the condition and giving you a very good idea of approximately how much money you're going to be putting into this house after the purchase. So I've put together a little list that I normally give out to people. I think Jess is going to be making that available to you. And these are things that you can look for on your own before you make the offer on the house. I kind of relate to this in the same aspect of when you buy a car, that you don't just look at it on the lot and walk in and make an offer for the car or buy it at that point. You do a test drive, you kind of check it out, you make sure everything works the way that you want it to, it's going to fit your needs. So the test drive for the house are some things that you can do on your own to make sure that when you do pay the inspector to come out, he's not bringing to your attention things that could easily have been noticed before you even put the offer on the house. So some of the things, just kind of going through them quickly, are what is the condition of the brick, the mortar, the brickwork on the house, and the chimney mortar. A lot of times I show up to a house and I'm simply just walking around and I see that a lot of the mortar is missing, we have cracked bricks, the chimney maybe is leaning, and the person that was purchasing the house never even noticed that. And that it's going to take a significant amount of repairs to be put into that house that is going to be somebody's expense. Decks and porches, check to see if there's a significant amount of rotted wood, or if it's wood that is just recently been painted to cover up anything that might be under it. Soft wood, moving boards when you walk on it, those are all issues that will definitely need to be rectified to make it safe. Electrical systems, if you're buying an older house, you want to find out if the electrical panel has been upgraded. So if you simply open up the panel and just look inside, if the service says that it's 200 amps, it's been upgraded. But a lot of times you'll find in older homes that it may only be 60 amps or has the little round fuses instead of breakers. That panel has definitely not been upgraded in a very long time, and it probably won't meet your electricity needs for you and your family. Now that we have a lot more electronics and things that are in the home, we need to have more amperage in the home. And sometimes it becomes an issue where it's also very difficult to find insurance for homes that have older electrical systems. The floors, you want to see what kind of shape they're in, not so much the visual condition of them, but are they slanted? Are they warped? Are they buckled? Are they going to require a lot of needed repairs for it to be in the condition that you want it to be in? Insulation, that's a hard one to kind of see on your own. You're not going to be going into the attic space, but really simply, if you're buying a house that's in the wintertime or you're buying it in the summertime, walk through the rooms and see if the temperature seems to be different from room to room. If it is, there's a very good possibility that we've got an insulation issue. There's other things that could cause it, but insulation will make a big difference on whether you have a couple hot rooms in the house in the summer or a cold room in the wintertime. Parking is a big one that has been coming up lately, and this has to do with municipalities that are making laws about where you can park, when you can park, or what's available to you. So some examples of this, or one example specifically for a client that I was just recently working with, is that the city made a law that says you cannot park a commercial vehicle on the street or in your driveway overnight. He works for a plumbing company and is required to take the work van home with him. He bought a house without a garage, which means parking on the street or parking in the driveway. There was no other place to put the vehicle. He did not find that out until after he purchased the house. So those are things that you want to ask. Ask the realtor, ask the homeowner what the current parking is. Sometimes if you're in cities, they require you to pay for parking, and that payment needs to be made by whoever is parking there, whether it's the homeowner, whoever. So you want to make sure of what your parking situation is. Plumbing in the house, I would definitely turn on all the water. Make sure that the water is running the way that you want it to, that it has good pressure. If it doesn't, those are things you want to bring up to your inspector to identify what the cause of low pressure is, colored water, things like that. You definitely want to check out the plumbing. The roof, just simply look up and see if what sort of condition it's in. You want to make sure all the shingles are there. You want to make sure you don't see holes in the roof or light shining through from the attic. You just kind of want to make sure that it's basically in good condition to the eye. Your inspector will check it out further, but I've been on many inspections where I'll be noting that we have about 20 shingles missing and they never looked up and even saw it. Windows, don't be afraid to open and close windows. If it's an older house and has wood windows, you want to make sure that they're working. You want to make sure that all the windows do open. So test a few of them or test all of them, but don't be afraid to test to make sure that things are working even before you put the offer on. And appliances, you can run those, turning on a stove or an oven, checking the microwave. Those are all definitely things you can check before you even get to the placing of the offer on the house. Then, after you felt comfortable and you put the offer on the house, you hire the home inspector. Now, as an inspector going through the house, some of the top things that I have found in homes, these are like the biggest things that usually come up. Number one are electrical problems. Again, we talked a little bit about older electrical services, but there's a lot of electrical problems where people will do their own electrical. And a lot of times it's when finishing a basement, they will watch a couple episodes on YouTube and now they're an electrician and they do some pretty bizarre things for electrical. So we want to make sure that everything is safe, in working order, and it's not going to be any costly issue for you. Plumbing, definitely we do pressure testing. I make sure that all the plumbing is working and that after running it for 20 to 30 minutes, all faucets open, all showers on, that we don't have any drainage issues with water backing up into the home. We want to make sure we have functional flow of everything with the plumbing. Foundations, we want to make sure we don't have any significant cracks, things that are bigger than a standard stress crack. We want to make sure it's not anything that's a structural issue or settling issues, which are going to be very costly to repair. The heating system, personally, I go a little bit above and beyond what the standards of practice is. I turn it on to make sure it works. I make sure that the unit is clean, it's operating the way that it should, and we have a good solid blue flame. But I do a carbon monoxide test on all of my inspections to make sure that it's operating the way that it should and it's not going to be unsafe or unhealthy to use. Exterior maintenance, a lot of these are things that could definitely be taken care of by a homeowner and they're neglected. Maybe it's an older person that doesn't go outside as much anymore. They take care of things inside, but they're not doing the painting, they're not doing the caulking, the small repairs on the outside. Ventilation is a big one in attic spaces that people will add insulation and cover up the ventilation. Without proper ventilation, that usually leads to a mold issue. Windows, we talked a little bit about that. Those are ones that are not working or rotted wood. Fireplaces, we want to make sure that we don't have any significant brick issues in it. If it's a wood burning fireplace, that the damper works and that everything is going to be operating properly. The grading on the outside of the house, meaning which way the ground is sloping, you want it to slope away from the house, not have water draining towards the house. Water heaters that are either installed improperly or not working at all. The roofing we talked a little bit about, we are required to state what the age of the shingle is, or at least a range. Make sure that it's watertight and not leaking into the home. And any structural issues. We don't want any settling that's causing any kind of problems with the house and how it's operating. Denise also mentioned that about getting a radon test. So radon testing is something that really should be done in every home. Radon is a gas that comes up through cracks and fissures in the earth, and it's a soil gas. It's from the decomposition of the soil. It comes up through the cracks and fissures in the earth, and it's pretty much everywhere we go. It was never a really big issue years ago because homes were built, but they were not built very energy efficient. So the radon could enter the home, it could leak out through the windows, it could leak out through the roof, and it was not a big issue. Today, homes are built where they're a lot more energy efficient. So we're using house wrap, better insulation, better insulated windows, and the radon is able to enter into the home and it doesn't escape. So now we're creating a concentrated level inside the house. So that's something I would definitely recommend that you would have done on any home you're purchasing so that we can identify if it has an elevated level of radon. And if it does, it's a very easy thing to get taken care of. It's a venting system, or what they call a mitigation system, that would be put in. simply taking out the radon beneath the house before it enters the home and ventilating it away from the house. So after the inspector has gone through the house, you will get an inspection report, which basically lists the condition of the home and the components. I write my reports all on the same day. So if we do the inspection on a Thursday, you will have the inspection report before I go to bed at night. And that would be important to get to usually the real estate agent and the attorney. And that's where you're going to be asking for the things that are significant health issues, significant dollar amounts, structural damage to the house. I want to make sure that you understand that the inspection report is not an all-inclusive list of everything that the seller is required to do to the home. Technically, the seller doesn't have to do anything to the home on a conventional sale. That's a renegotiation. You're going to be asking for things that are health and safety issues or big dollar amounts. There were things that you wouldn't have normally noticed when you were placing the offer on the house. But it's not up to any seller to say that they have to do anything. They could just say, we're going to see what the next offer brings and the deal is done. Or you can negotiate at a credit amount for what it may take to fix those items, and they don't want to take the time to fix them, so they give you a credit. Again, you would probably want to talk to Betsy and make sure that we're within the credit limits on what you can accept from the seller. So basically, it's a condition report of the house. It's not a list of all the things that the seller has to fix. The only time that this is different is if it's an FHA loan. And an FHA loan is a federally backed loan that they have certain items that need to be up to their standards before they write the check for the loan. So anytime that something comes up on the FHA appraisal, which is their walkthrough survey, those are items that they can say, these items must be taken care of or the deal does not go through. So they have the ability to enforce that to make sure that those items are taken care of. Then I would encourage that when we get to this point, that you would do a final walkthrough on your home, usually the night before the closing or the day of the closing. And what I always encourage is to take the report that I would provide to you, print it out, and highlight the items that you've asked for and that the seller has agreed to take care of. Also, use the photos that I put in there so that as you're walking through the house, number one, you can see that the items that you've asked for have been taken care of. But number two, you want to make sure that the house is at least in the same condition that it was and what you expected it to be when you put your offer on the house. I use a lot of photos in my report so that you're able to kind of go through and look at things, but it also acts as if the seller decided that maybe they wanted to take light fixtures out and put other ones back in, or change something significantly, or take something from the house that needs to stay with the house. That's when you want to find those items in a final walkthrough. So that's pretty much my presentation. I would encourage you to have an inspection done on any home that you're looking to purchase, whether it's a house, a townhouse, or a condo. Again, my name is Greg Lehman with Classic Home Inspection Service, and I appreciate your time.
All right, thank you all. We do have one question already. So I believe this one's for Betsy. If a hard pull on credit will lower your FICO score, how long does it take for the score to rebound?
Not that much time at all. In fact, let me just get back on the video here. We find that it's definitely within less than 30 days. So we don't find it a huge detriment to your situation in general. But again, it also depends on the circumstances of your credit rating at that time.
I've got a couple questions from Brittany. How many years do you intend to live in a house after buying? I don't know who they handled that one. Hold on, Denise, you're muted.
Can I state from a mortgage perspective real quick,
Mhm.
if you do get down payment assistance, that down payment assistance might require you to possibly be there 5 years or 10 years. So that could be a guiding thought in that process, but I'll hand it over to Denise.
Oh, actually, I really liked your answer, Betsy, because that's something that, yeah, you'd want to consider. I guess it would also depend on, I mean, if you purchase a home and you were to leave in the next year, there's a possibility that you may take a loss because there's cost to selling. And if there wasn't in that year, most likely it wasn't a large amount that the home went up in value in that short of time. So you could actually lose money. So my answer, I guess, would be you'd want to save for maybe 3 to 5 years, but everybody can't do something that's cookie cutter answer to that. It's your life and what you might have to do.
Have any of you been on House Hunters?
No.
I have not.
No.
All right.
Oh, that's funny.
Her third question here is best tips for going through the process without ripping your hair out. My tip would be to get a realtor who will hold your hand through it, and definitely keep a copy of Denise's booklet so that you can check through everything. And when you're getting all anxious, you can go back and check, like, okay, no, I already did this step. I'm good.
Yeah. That's why I use that's why I always say that right now, tonight, we're giving you textbook. And textbook isn't always what happens, right? So there's always going to be some things that are going to get thrown in there. And that's why you have that team that I talked about. Your team is there to help you and you get to build your team. So it's in your hands to make that decision. So it's important.
Any other
And I guess my response on that would be, Denise mentioned it very early in her presentation, but when you're basically interviewing your agent on who you're going to work with, ask them some of the questions, kind of find out who their team is, so that you want to kind of know, do they work with a real estate attorney on a regular basis? Do they have a home inspector that they can refer you to? And who do they go to in the event the issues come up? Like, are they used to working with certain people, or are they just going to leave you kind of hanging?
And then I'd like to add one more thing. I would have to say that I do a parental influence in a way, because I realize, especially for first-time home buyers, it's such an overwhelming experience. Even when we're in the mortgage industry, I mean, Greg or Denise or myself, it's overwhelming. I hold that person's hand, and I really do make sure that we're always available to answer questions and walk them through the process as best we can. And then whenever there's a hiccup, we take care of the hiccup.
And with that, I would also add, if you are having trouble communicating with them to set up the appointment, that's probably not someone you want to use, because you're going to need them to answer questions pretty quickly at some of these steps.
Texting is a great thing.
Yes, that was very helpful to me.
Yep.
Any other questions? You can put them in the Q&A or the chat. Give you all a moment to think. And while they're thinking about questions, I have to ask my favorite question that I ask every year, which is, on the inspections, what is anything crazy you found recently?
There's always crazy things that come up on inspections. Last year was my year of live animals. I don't know why it was last year, but there was a lot of live animals in homes, whether it was rats, bats, possums, squirrels, snakes. There's things living in the house that shouldn't be living in the house.
Can I add one thing?
Mm-hmm.
And this is not as exciting as what Greg was talking about with the live animals, I have to say, but from a credit standpoint, it was shocking because we had a 100% or 100-point drop in a FICO score going from Credit Karma to a mortgage credit report. So we saw that FICO score go down 100 points. That's not the norm, but you always have to keep in mind that a soft pull is an estimate, and a hard pull, a mortgage credit report, is going to be very, very accurate.
Betsy, what are some things that if someone's thinking about a house now, but they're maybe not going to be buying for a year or so, what can they do now to prepare for that?
I would say speak to me right now, because we're going to probably do a little bit of investigation and determine there might be an area of their financial background that we need to tweak. And right now, it does seem to be issues that you don't know that have arisen with your credit. So we pull credit ahead of time. We look at job time. You know, with COVID, people have had some time off or have lost their jobs. But we also look at your savings patterns and things like that. So we tweak what we need to tweak, but I work with people 6 months, 12 months, 18 months out to get them to the point to be ready to buy that first home.
And I know this you can't answer exactly because it's going to vary from person to person. Right now, a lot of us do not be making any payments on our student loans, or it's 0%. Would it be better to take advantage of that 0% and pay down the loans, or to put the money aside in savings? What's going to help us better with the housing?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. That's a really good question. I think I always try to reduce debt. And so that's the direction I go in. I would make the payments anyway on the student loan. Maybe put a little bit on the side for savings.
I think that's what I would recommend also, because there's no other time that you're going to be able to get a 0% interest on a student loan.
I know. That's incredible right now.
We have a question from Sarah. Is there a better or worse time of the year to house hunt based on the market?
Oh, I'll take that one. So the answer to that is really no. Homes sell every month of the year. I bet both Betsy and Greg can say they're busy all year round, right? There's that spring market that people hear of, and there are sellers that jump into the housing market in the spring. Sometimes it's because they just want to kind of see what the market will bear. But there's homes sold in December and January and February. So I always say it's when it's best for you. So everybody that rents, their leases could be up at different times of the year. They need to find a property. When the weather is nice, it's easier to go look at houses, but that's not a reason to choose when to go. And also when it gets dark early, you know, if you're looking to go out at night to look at houses, you know, I'm sure Greg agrees, it's hard for us to go out and see certain things that maybe we would have seen if it was daylight. So that may be something, but I don't think they're all workarounds, right? It's not like, you know, you couldn't go when it's dark, or just go back when it's light, see it again, right? So I hope that answered the question.
And just to kind of cap on to that, there's really not a bad time of year to have an inspection done, but you do have to keep in mind that if it's in the wintertime, that there might be times when the roof is covered with snow and we can't see everything that's on the roof. And if it's below 60 degrees, we can't run the air conditioner. Now, there are things that we can do on that. We can do pressure testing, but I can't operate it because it's going to cause damage to it. So in the wintertime, we're going to be a little bit limited on some days as far as what we can test, but I would not let that hold me back from purchasing a house in the winter if you need to move in the winter.
What is causing the low inventory right now?
I think, should I take that? Is that?
Go ahead.
All right. I think that the reason is because there are sellers who would want to be sellers who might be in a price point, they already own a home, they'd like to maybe move to another home, but there's not inventory for them. So then it's kind of like what we're doing is like a snowball effect, right? So if there isn't homes in that higher price point for them, then it just keeps going. And then, but first time home ownership right now, I would say that's the largest range of that there are homes on the market. So I think that's a positive for all of you that are looking for the first time to purchase a home. And then there's uncertainty. Some sellers are just staying where they're at, although we're hearing so much about people working from home now that they could work from anywhere. So we may be seeing that changing now, where they're starting to move actually out of state in places that they've always dreamed to live in.
If someone is moving out of state, are there any tips you can give them for finding out about different areas?
Sure. I would, as far as lending goes, that would be for Betsy, but as far as like looking for houses, I would say that your realtor has relationships and ability to refer you to realtors in other states. And then I would say building a relationship with somebody where you can ask all those questions about the market. Is it a seller's market? We look at the definition of a seller's market or a buyer's market is a healthy market is having 6 months worth of inventory. What does that mean? That means that if you looked at how many homes were on the market right now, this moment in that area, and there were no more buyers that were going to, no more homes that were going to go on the market, and we know how many buyers it takes to buy those homes, that tells us how many months of inventory we have. So if 6 months is healthy, when we have more than 6 months, it's a buyer's market, and when we have under 6 months, it's a seller's market. So those are things that the realtors in the other states that you're moving to could help you to understand.
From a lending perspective, we're licensed in all 50 states, so we are definitely able to help. And that's a good thing, because not all places pay their taxes in arrears. Not all places have real estate attorneys. So there are so many regional state differences that speaking to people that are familiar with other states is very, very important.
Very.
Okay, any other questions? Well, a moment to think. I'm not seeing anything. So thank you all for coming out tonight. Thank you to our speakers. I know this has always been really helpful to people each year, even if they're not looking right now, they feel more prepared to do it in the future. We will have a recording of this. I've already sent out the handouts. If you did not get them, I put a link in the chat when we started. You can also just go to our calendar on the library's website, and all of those will be on the event page. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to any of the speakers. That should also be in the email that I sent out. All right, thank you all, and have a good weekend.
Okay,
Thank
thank you
you.
very much.
Thanks. It was
Sure.
fun.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Good night.